Mark's life took an unexpected turn the day he found a tiny kitten clinging to his pant leg during a hike. The little creature, weak and trembling, wouldn't let go. She pressed against his leg, as if begging for help. Unable to walk away, he took her home and named her Arya. Within a week, he was completely attached to her. She followed him around the house like a shadow, curling up beside him as he worked, and quickly became a part of his daily life. He couldn't imagine life without her. He even started to wonder why more people didn't adopt stray cats. Though deep down, he sensed that Arya was different. But as days passed, something wasn't right. The kitten kept growing bigger every day, and her behavior became stranger. The animal Mark had rescued wasn't a kitten at all, and when he discovered the truth, it was devastating. Arya wasn't just a bobcat, and she was never meant to be someone's pet. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Mark Harrison, at 68, had come to measure his life in silences. The loudest, most profound silence was the one that had filled his small cabin in the foothills of the North Carolina Blue Ridge Mountains for 2 years, ever since his wife, Eleanor, had passed. The ticking clock on the mantle, the whisper of the wind in the pines, the popping of the wood stove. They were just small noises punctuating a vast, empty quiet. His days fell into a simple, unyielding rhythm. Coffee, woodworking, a long hike, dinner for one, and then the long evening spent staring into the fire. It was on one of these hikes, a crisp Tuesday in late October, that the silence was broken. He was on the Laurel Creek Trail, a path he'd walked 1,000 times when he heard it. A high-pitched, desperate mewing. It was so thin, it was almost birdsong. He stopped, scanning the carpet of fallen, damp leaves. Nothing. He took another step, and it came again, frantic and close. Mark pushed aside a spray of rhododendron and looked down. There, trembling on the dark earth, was a kitten. It was the smallest living thing he had ever seen. Its fur a mess of spots and tufts, its ears comically large for its tiny, triangular face. Its ribs showed clearly through its thin coat, and it was shivering so violently he could see it from a yard away. He knew the rules. He'd lived in these mountains his whole life. You leave wildlife alone, the mother is probably nearby. He stood there for a full minute, waiting. The only sound was the creek and the kitten's terrified, reedy cries. He looked around. No sign of a mother. No tracks. Just this tiny, freezing creature, hours from death. "All right, little one," Mark whispered, his voice rusty from disuse. "Where's your mama?" He knelt, his old knees protesting. He reached out a gloved finger, and the creature impossibly didn't hiss or spit. It stumbled forward, a desperate, clumsy crawl, and latched onto the denim of his pant leg. It clung there with tiny, needle-sharp claws, as if his leg were the last tree in a wildfire. Mark's heart, a heavy and dormant thing, gave a painful lurch. This wasn't a wild animal hiding. This was a baby begging for help. He waited another hour. The sun began to dip, and the mountain air turned sharp. The kitten was still clinging to his jeans, its cries now weak, intermittent rasps. Leaving it was a death sentence. "Well, hell," he sighed, gently unhooking the tiny claws from his pants. The kitten was so light it felt like holding a fistful of dry leaves. He unzipped his flannel-lined jacket and tucked the shivering creature against his chest. It immediately burrowed into the warmth, and a faint, rumbling purr, far too deep for such a small body, vibrated against his ribs. It was the first living thing that had needed him in 2 years. He drove home, the tiny creature asleep in his lap, and the cabin felt different. The silence had a new shape. It was an attentive, protective silence. He named her Arya. Eleanor had always loved that name. The first week was a blur of frantic research and exhaustion. Mark drove to the feed store in town and bought a supply of KMR, kitten milk replacer, and the smallest bottles they had. "Got a new mouth to feed, Mark?" asked Jim, the owner, leaning on the counter. "Just a stray," Mark mumbled, paying in cash. "Found her by the woodpile." He fed Arya every 3 hours. He, who hadn't set an alarm in years, was now waking at 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. to the sound of impatient chirps, not meows. He'd sit in his old armchair, the tiny bobcat in the crook of his arm, watching her suckle greedily at the bottle. He'd rub her belly with a warm, damp cloth, just as the internet had told him to. He knew, of course. On day 2, when her spots became clearer and her tufted ears perked up, he knew. This was no house cat. This was Lynx rufus, a bobcat. He Googled keeping a baby bobcat. The results were a digital chorus of "don't." It was illegal. It was dangerous. They were not pets. They would destroy his home. They would turn on him. Mark looked at the creature curled up on his boot, no bigger than a squirrel, and scoffed. Danger? He'd faced loneliness. This was companionship. As the weeks turned into a month, then 2, Arya grew. She was a whirlwind of clumsy, predatory grace. She didn't walk, she pounced. She attacked his bootlaces, the dust bunnies under the sofa, and the stray beams of sunlight on the floor. She'd stalk him from the kitchen to the workshop, her stubby tail twitching, before launching a harmless ambush on his ankle. He was completely, hopelessly attached. She became his shadow. When he sat at his workbench, carving delicate birds from blocks of basswood, Arya would be asleep in a box of wood shavings at his feet. When he read in his armchair by the fire, she would climb with surprising strength up his pant leg and curl onto his lap, her deep, throaty purr a balm on his quiet grief. "You're a character, aren't you?" he'd murmur, scratching the thick ruff of fur under her chin. He knew he couldn't keep her inside forever. He spent nearly $5,000, a significant chunk of his savings, building a massive outdoor enclosure. It wasn't a cage. It was a compound. He attached it to the back of the house with a cat door so she could come and go. It was 40 feet long, roofed with heavy-gauge wire, and filled with logs, high platforms, and a small circulating pool. He ordered specialized raw food from a company that supplied zoos, a blend of rabbit, quail, and necessary supplements. He was doing it right, he told himself. He was giving her a better life than she ever would have had in the wild. She was safe. She was fed. She was loved. Deep down, a small, nagging voice warned him he was playing with fire. But then Arya would chase her tail or fall asleep on his chest, and the voice would fade. She was his family. The change began when Arya was nearly 6 months old. She was sleek and muscular now, almost 20 pounds, and undeniably wild. But the playful spark in her amber eyes began to dim. It started subtly. She stopped pouncing on his socks. She'd leave her favorite quail uneaten. Mark would find her not on her high perch in the enclosure, but hiding in the darkest corner of his workshop under a pile of tarps. "What's the matter, baby girl?" Mark cooed, trying to coax her out. "Come on, I've got your dinner." She'd just stare at him, her gaze flat and distant. By the end of the week, she wasn't eating at all. She was lethargic, sleeping most of the day, and when she did walk, she seemed stiff. A cold, sharp panic began to bloom in Mark's chest. He called Dr. Evans, his vet in town for 30 years. "Mark Harrison? How are you? How's old Buster doing?" Dr. Evans asked, mistaking him for another client. "I'm fine, Doc. Listen, I have a cat. She's sick, not eating, very sleepy. Sounds like a bug. Bring her on in, Mark. We can see her at 11. Mark's throat tightened. "Well, Doc, that's the thing. She's not exactly a normal cat. She's a bobcat." The line went silent for a long, heavy moment. "Mark," Dr. Evans said finally, his voice stripped of its earlier warmth. "You know I can't. I can't touch her. My license, my insurance. It doesn't cover exotic wildlife. It is illegal for you to have her, and it's illegal for me to treat her as a pet. I could lose my entire practice. You have to call Fish and Wildlife." "But they'll put her down," Mark pleaded. "That's the law, Mark. I'm sorry. My hands are tied." The line clicked dead. Mark stared at the receiver, his hand shaking. He spent the next 3 hours calling every vet within a 100-mile radius. The story was the same. "We are not licensed for exotic carnivores. You must surrender the animal to the state." "Absolutely not." Arya was fading. Her breathing was shallow. Mark sat on the workshop floor, tears welling in his eyes, and stroked her fur. She was a wild animal, and his love had trapped her. He was watching her die because he couldn't let her go. Desperate, he typed, "Wildlife Bobcat Rescue Tennessee" into his computer. He'd go to another state if he had to. A result popped up. Appalachian Wildlife Sanctuary, 4.5 hours away in the mountains near Johnson City. He dialed, his heart pounding. A calm, professional voice answered. "Appalachian Wildlife. This is Sarah." Mark's voice broke. Please, you have to help me. I have a bobcat. I found her as a kitten. She's dying. No one will see her." He poured out the whole story, the finding, the feedings, the enclosure. He expected a lecture, but the woman just listened. "Sir?" Sarah said, her voice firm but not unkind. "What you're describing sounds like a severe metabolic or nutritional deficiency. Or she could simply be suffering from the stress of captivity. An enclosure, no matter how large, isn't the wild. Her instincts are telling her she's in the wrong place, and it's shutting her down." "Can you help her?" Mark whispered. There was a pause. "We can examine her at no cost. But you must understand, Mr. Harrison. If we take her in, she will not be returned to you. Our only mission is to rehabilitate and release. If she is too sick to be released, she will remain at the sanctuary as an educational animal. But she will never be a pet again." The words hit Mark like a physical blow. Lose her. The thought of the cabin empty again. The silence returning, heavier this time. But then he looked down at Arya, her body limp, her eyes dull. His love or her life? It wasn't a choice. "I'm coming," he said. "I'm leaving right now." The 5-hour drive was the longest of Mark's life. Arya lay in a large dog carrier in the passenger seat, nestled in one of Eleanor's old, soft quilts. He talked to her the whole way, his voice thick with grief. "I'm so sorry, baby girl. I messed up. I didn't want to be alone. But I'm going to get you help. They'll make you better. You'll be able to run in the real woods." He arrived at the sanctuary, a sprawling, clean facility set deep in a valley. It smelled of pine disinfectant, hay, and a musky animal scent he couldn't place. Sarah, a woman in her 40s with a kind face and no-nonsense eyes, met him at the intake office. She was with a tall, bearded man in a khaki uniform who introduced himself as Dr. Ben Cole, the head biologist. They were professional, but Mark could feel their quiet, heavy judgment. They asked an endless stream of questions as they gently lifted Arya from the carrier. "What exactly was her diet?" Dr. Cole asked, his eyes scanning her body, his fingers probing her joints. I got a special blend from a zoo supplier, raw rabbit, and... Any supplements? Calcium? Taurine? The food said it was complete. Dr. Cole nodded grimly, writing on a clipboard. Her joints are swollen, Mr. Harrison. It's likely metabolic bone disease. Her body couldn't process the nutrients. Your complete diet was killing her. Mark felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. His best intentions, his expensive food, it had all been a catastrophic failure. "She likes this," Mark said, his voice choking as he handed Sarah the old quilt. "It was my wife's. She sleeps on it." Sarah's expression softened for the first time. "We'll take good care of her, Mark. You did the right thing bringing her here. You can call in a few days for an update." He watched them carry her through a door marked triage. He stood in the gravel parking lot for a long time. Handing her over was the hardest thing he had ever done. It felt like a betrayal. It felt like losing Eleanor all over again. The drive home was a blur. The cabin, when he returned, was no longer just quiet. It was empty. Mark called every day for a week. The updates were terse. "She's stable but guarded. She's on a critical care diet. She's not responding to the MBD treatment as we'd hoped." Then, on the 10th day, he called, and the receptionist gave him a different answer. "Oh, the bobcat. Arya? She's no longer at our facility, sir." Mark's blood ran cold. "What? What do you mean? Did she? Oh, no, sir. She was transferred. Dr. Cole had her moved to the Carnivore Research Institute at the university. It's a specialized facility." Why? He hadn't agreed to that. Was she a test subject? Was she so sick they were just going to study her? A new, cold dread washed over him. He got in his truck and drove the 5 hours back, fueled by anger and fear. He stormed into the sanctuary office. "Where is she? You had no right to move her." Sarah met him in the lobby, holding up her hands. "Mark, please. Calm down. It's a good thing. It's just very complicated. Dr. Cole is the one you need to talk to. He's at the institute. He's expecting you." "Expecting me? I called him when you left your cabin. He'll explain everything." The institute was a sterile, modern building of glass and steel. It felt a world away from the rustic sanctuary. Dr. Cole met him in a small conference room. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright, almost electric. "Mr. Harrison, sit down," Dr. Cole began, his voice formal. "What you did, keeping that animal, was reckless, foolish, and against the law. By all rights, I should have you charged." Mark deflated. "I know. I just want to know if she's okay." Dr. Cole stared at him for a long moment, and his academic demeanor cracked. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "She's more than okay, Mark. She's a miracle. We ran her genetics, standard procedure for any new intake. Her blood work came back. Well, it came back impossible. We ran it 3 times. What are you talking about? Arya isn't just a bobcat, Mark. Lynx rufus. Her markings are wrong. The ruff of fur on her face is too pronounced. Her bone density, even with the MBD, is off the charts. She doesn't match any known local population." Dr. Cole clicked a remote. A black and white photo of a stuffed, snarling cat from a museum appeared on the wall. "This," Dr. Cole said, "is a Lynx rufus highlandus, the eastern highland bobcat, a subspecies we believed was hunted to extinction. The last confirmed specimen was shot in this state in 1892. We thought they were gone forever." He clicked again. A photo of Arya taken a few days ago appeared next to it. The similarities were undeniable. "Her DNA," Dr. Cole said, his voice filled with awe, "is a 99.8% match to a tissue sample we have from that 1892 specimen. Mark, Arya is a ghost. She's living proof of a lost genetic lineage." Mark couldn't breathe. "So, what does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Cole said, "that your pet is the single most important carnivore discovery in the Appalachians in a century. It means there might be more of them out there. A tiny, hidden population. She isn't just a rescued kitten, Mark. She's a genetic key. She's hope." The revelation shifted the world beneath Mark's feet. His tiny, lap-purring friend. A ghost. "The reason she was sick," Dr. Cole continued, "wasn't just the diet. Her subspecies is highly specialized. She's built for high altitudes, for hunting snowshoe hare and grouse. Your low-elevation cabin, the food, she's a finely tuned engine, and you were putting the wrong fuel in it. At the Institute, we've been able to stabilize her. She's already recovering." "So, what happens now?" Mark asked. "Now," Dr. Cole said, "we save her species. And you, Mark, are going to help us." The next 6 months were a strange dream. Mark was given a special volunteer badge for the Institute. He was no longer her owner. He was, as Dr. Cole jokingly called him, her founding patron. His task, given his woodworking skills, was to help build the final stage rehabilitation enclosure, a massive 3-acre patch of forested hillside, double-fenced and secure. He worked alongside biologists and students, building platforms and dens that mimicked the high-altitude forests Arya belonged to. He saw her, but only from a distance, through binoculars. She was magnificent. She had grown into a powerful 30-pound predator. Her coat was thick and silvery, her ear tufts long and black, her gaze sharp and wild. They were teaching her to hunt live prey, rabbits and quail released into her enclosure. He watched her make her first kill, a silent, lightning-fast ambush. She was no longer his Arya. She was a wild queen, and his heart swelled with a pride so fierce it almost hurt. Finally, the day came. It was a cold, bright morning in late April. They drove her in a specialized transport crate high into the Black Balsam Range, a remote, protected wilderness area where the 1892 specimen had been found. It was a place of spruce fir forests and sweeping grassy balds. Mark was there, along with Dr. Cole and Sarah. "She's fitted with a satellite collar," Dr. Cole said quietly as they stood before the crate. "We'll be able to track her. But this is it. The rest is up to her. He looked at Mark. You found her, Mark. It's only right. You open the door. Mark's hands trembled. He walked to the crate and fumbled with the heavy steel latch. He pulled it free and the door swung open. Arya didn't bolt. She stepped out slowly, cautiously. She was a stunning, powerful animal. She stood at the edge of the clearing, her head raised, tasting the wind. She looked at the endless peaks, a landscape she had never seen but that her very bones recognized. Then, she turned her head. She looked directly at Mark, her amber eyes meeting his across the 30 feet of mountain grass. It wasn't a look of affection. It wasn't thank you or goodbye. It was deeper. It was a look of acknowledgement, a silent, primal connection that spanned the gulf between their two worlds. Then, in two powerful, silent bounds, she was gone. She vanished into the dark shadows of the spruce forest as if she were never there at all. Mark stood there. The image of her burned into his mind. He was sobbing, great, heaving breaths that tore from his chest. But it wasn't just grief. It was relief. It was awe. It was a profound, wrenching, beautiful release. That moment broke his heart and healed it all at once. Sarah put a kind hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing, Mark. He wiped his eyes on his sleeve, looking at the empty forest. No, he whispered. She saved me. And now she's home. Years passed. Mark Harrison, now 73, was a different man. He was a permanent volunteer at the Appalachian Wildlife Sanctuary, using his skills to build enclosures and enrichment toys for the actual orphans that came in. He often spoke to new volunteers and to people who, like him, had tried to rescue a wild animal. He told his story. He told them that real love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go. The cabin was still quiet, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with purpose. He was in his workshop one Tuesday, sanding a new perch for a rescued hawk, when his phone rang. It was Dr. Cole. Mark? Ben Cole. Ben, how are you? It's been a while. I'm good, Mark. I'm better than good. We got one. Mark's heart stopped. Got one. A camera trap, high up near Shining Rock. It's her. We confirmed the collar signal faded 2 years ago. Battery died, which is normal. We've been flying blind, but we got her. She looks healthy, strong. Oh, Ben, that's wonderful news, Mark said, sitting down. That's not the news, Mark, Dr. Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. She wasn't alone. We got her on video. She has 2 cubs. 2 of them, Mark. Spotted, healthy. We got a hair sample from a snare we set. Their genetics are pure. Mark closed his eyes, a slow tear tracing a path through the sawdust on his cheek. She did it, Mark, Ben whispered. She's not a ghost. She's a population. Mark hung up the phone and walked out onto his porch. He looked at the same mountains, now bathed in the soft blue light of evening. He thought of her, his beautiful, fierce ghost, teaching her own babies to hunt in the high, wild country. Arya wasn't gone. She was everywhere. She was home. And her wild heart and the hearts of her children were roaming free, just as they were always meant to.